Guten Tag, meine Damen und Herren.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, friends.
Willkommen zu unserem ersten
Welcome to our first conference in Munich at the Competence Center for Ethics at Ludwig-Maximilian-University. I'm delighted to be here in Munich. It's an exciting city full of innovation and tradition, which combines the north with the south. Not so long ago, it was here that I had the great fortune to be one of the first students to complete the interdisciplinary course in philosophy, politics and economics, PPE. Today we're talking about ethics and IT, and once again we have some fantastic presenters and inspiring talks on our program. And once again it's an issue that people are talking and discussing and debating, and that's the way it should be, because ethics and IT have a lot to do with our own private lives, our future, our present, our freedom and our democracy. As we know, information technology is speeding up every walk of life and will do so increasingly because of the rapid dissemination of information, knowledge, both locally and globally. Innovative business ideas are emerging, and also social capital. Social entrepreneurship, share economy, co-working, crowdfunding, global community, 3D printing, digital manufacturing. These are not just modern concepts which enrich communication, they're all Anglicisms as well in other languages, but they open up completely new ways of conducting business and living together. But because of the spiraling expansion, some web-based companies have turned into international groups with a kind of monopoly dominance. And politicians still have trouble, apparently, understanding how the internet works. But for the last year, at least, since the Snowden affair began, this rose-coloured spectacles we used to wear on the internet has been a bit clouded. We can talk about this, ladies and gentlemen, but not over the phone, because our telephone conversations are all being recorded, not only those of Chancellor Merkel. Let's write about it, but not on the internet, because our emails are all being collected, not only those of suspected criminals. Let's research the matter, but please not by Googling, because everything we look for will be tracked and preserved forever. Forget Big Brother, because Google is better. These are the slogans of the moment. But how can we take this rather amorphous mass, which is steered by those internet companies, and become a global community which is open, free and democratic, and which helps to shape our lives on the internet? I'd like particularly to mention a few points. First of all, freedom. As Jeremy Bentham wrote, the very fact that we know we are under surveillance and may be punished is enough to keep us on the lead. We don't know exactly when it's going to happen, so we're not free. For this reason, in order to preserve freedom on the web, Edward Snowden stole those sensitive data that he was confronted with at work and made it available to the general public, demonstrating that all our digital movements are tracked and stored. Not only is everything that is technologically possible being done, but the foundations are laid for totalitarian power. Steps towards systemic change would merely be a logical consequence. Google alone, ladies and gentlemen, searches more than 500 million URLs. And what does competition mean in the digital age if so much data is concentrated in the hands of one party? Mark Zuckerberg, responding to the question what Facebook thought about saving data and personal privacy, said, "I don't understand the question. If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear." And a lot of people think that way, and they don't necessarily mean it maliciously. But if you look more closely, That is actually the attitude you'd expect to find in a totalitarian regime, not in a free society. This is the kind of view of humanity you might expect from the head of the Stasi or some other secret service in a dictatorship. The nature of freedom is that nobody is obliged to expose everything about themselves, that everyone has a right to discretion and confidentiality. It's only dictatorships that don't want a free press. They want glass, transparent citizens. Point 2, ladies and gentlemen, relates to the internet culture of web-based big groups. Self-censorship, surveillance, loss of privacy. Google, Amazon, Facebook and so forth think these things are unimportant. Access to communication, information and consumption is all very fine and good, but with every movement on this big internet platform, one becomes a potential object of surveillance on the part of the intelligence services of the Five Eyes Alliance. As we know, almost every sign of life on the internet can be tapped by an American or British cable managed by the intelligence service. It is assumed that Google and the other big internet groups, whether we're in the car, whether we're at home, whether we're in the health service, will take over management of all our personal data. This might be an opportunity, but it might be a threat. According to Google, technological companies should, under their own steam, want to make the world a better place, whether through protecting the environment or human rights, in order to preempt state regulation. This isn't about technology and its potential. This is a political debate. Apple devices and Google algorithms aren't actually government programs. We, citizens, are the ones who must make the decisions about what happens to our data on the web and at what cost, what price. As long as it's only about revealing content, not many people were interested, but this changes when personal data are at stake. The question who those data belong to is going to be one of the main political issues to decide in the future. With internet networking, Google and all these other big concerns are growing together with the web, which means that they are able to tap in increasingly the private lives of people. Eric Schmidt of Google says surveillance isn't pleasant and censorship is even worse, but it's only the others who do that. Ladies and gentlemen, what about self-censorship? Since Snowden, we are being more cautious when we're on the web. A lot of users prefer to discuss things on a one-to-one basis rather than on a technical platform, which may possibly be a good development. So to sum up the attitude of Google and the others, what we do is good for humanity. Full stop. So it is extremely important that we, who are being watched, have an opinion about what should be happening on the webs and shape the way the web is used. We are the citizens of democratic states. Google could set a good example. The company could generate transparency, for example, by listing search results based on clear quantitative data and publishing all its algorithms. And it could not save IP addresses, automatically delete cookies after every session, and only store client or user behavior if users specifically request it. Finally, Google could declare and demonstrate what it plans to do with its floating headquarters and laboratories. Let's come on to digital humanism. It's not only this culture of surveillance that we want to counter, ladies and gentlemen, but also this free lunch culture that internet users have got used to. This free lunch culture is fictional. In the internet, everything, or so much, appears to be free of charge, but in fact, we pay through our conduct because we become predictable and our behavior becomes commercially a commodity. Because if you've just had a car accident, for example, and you write about it in an email, it's quite likely that tomorrow you will receive a text on your mobile offering you a new car. And what might appear to be a revelation of content might ultimately threaten the livelihoods of many small companies and creative people. Jaron Lanier writes about this in his book, Who Owns the Future? He says that the creative input of each individual should be remunerated. We use the internet, yes, but at the same time it's our content that these big groups are exploiting. And that means that on the web we are both consumers and producers of content. And in the latter function, we ought to be rewarded. This is the core of a digital renaissance or a humanist IT economy, according to Jaron Lanier. One disadvantage of that could be that our private lives are increasingly commercialized. The payment system, a kind of micropayment per transaction, would need to be worked on, developed, but it's certainly worth looking at. The internet needs to be open, free and accessible to everyone, so that, and remain that way for future generations. We can contribute to this through the open source technologies, the fab labs, the digital industry and the co-workers, by supporting those in Berlin and elsewhere. In many other cities there are already very many of these. Politicians should gradually come to understand how the internet works and make framework regulations available, because citizens should be allowed to decide for themselves about digital content. And then the next generation, at the latest, those who grow up with the digital world, should be active architects and not leave this to the big companies. And let me just add, ladies and gentlemen, the experience of recent history in Italy confirms that we cannot leave our future in the hands of single managers. One last point, ladies and gentlemen, and it's very important to me. It relates to programming language. For a long time, programming languages have become an essential technique in our culture, and they're becoming increasingly important, so they should soon become a school subject. Online, programming courses are already being offered. For example, online with the successful campaign Code.org, and in Germany, Jeder kann programmieren, DE. IT is a central part of our world, and in the future it's going to expand even further. Certainly, the individual skills in programming language is the first step into an adult digital society. In that spirit, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you and all of us a very interesting day.